Good afternoon, folks. I'd love to see more here today, but we'll carry on like it is. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Law Enforcement, Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee to order. And if we would, pause for a moment of silence. Mr. Root, would you lead us in our invocation?
Yes, sir. Pray with me if you'd like to. Dear Father, thank you for this opportunity. And special thank you for our law enforcement and emergency responders. Pray you bless them with safety, guidance, and just be with them at every scene they respond to and all their preparation. And also bless the preparation of this committee so they can help those folks do their work and so we can serve this county well. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Mr. Coley, would you honor us by leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes, past minutes. November the 19th, 2024 special meeting minutes, and February 18, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. First order of business today on our discussion items is discussion regarding Oconee County noise ordinance enforcement there. And I think Sheriff Crenshaw is going to lead us in that discussion.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, council members. The noise ordinance has been getting a lot of attention, I know, with you all, with some citizens, and rightfully so in some cases. But I wanted to kind of give you an update on where we're at concerning specifically noise ordinance in relation to fraternities in Oconee County. We currently have about 10 to 11 fraternities that are in Oconee County from Clemson University. I know there's 6 down at the Pier Apartment Village Complex. They've actually got a Greek village down there. And then we've got another 4 or 5 that's in the Seneca area at various locations, standalone fraternities by themselves. And I know you all had some citizens to address you with some concerns that they have. First and foremost, some of these issues is on us. It's on the sheriff's office, and we take responsibility for that. Some of our newer deputies not fully understanding the noise ordinance in relation to the objectiveness and subjectiveness of the ordinance. And we feel like we've corrected that from a training standpoint as well as a personnel standpoint, making sure that each and every deputy fully understands the current noise ordinance that we have. I think the noise ordinance can be very beneficial. I don't really, at this point, see us needing to make changes to it. We went back and spent a lot of time and effort just a few years ago adding that objective standard of a decibel reading to the ordinance, in addition to it just being subjective for so many years. When one deputy would go out and think it's not too loud, and another deputy would go out and think it's too loud. So we added that. So we feel like that we put a lot of effort into that, and it's very efficient for us right now. But so training has and is continuing to take place. We've got some more meetings scheduled with even some officers, deputies that's just come on board in the last 2 or 3 weeks, making sure that they understand that. We're in the process of recording a podcast video podcast that we will publish on our website for all citizens to have access to, so that all citizens can fully understand the noise ordinance. But we will also be getting a copy of this to all the fraternities when school starts back up this fall. We want to continue to get the fraternities in the county to register their event. That had caused some confusion in the past. We've cleared that up as well. But this does two things. It gives us, one, the locations of these events, as well as the number of events. If one fraternity, two fraternities are combining to have one event. And it also gives us two, sometimes sober persons in some of these events to contact and to confront if we have a call for service, rather than trying to wade through a mass group of college students trying to find who's in charge or who's responsible. So that is the sole purpose of that registration process. It is in no way an exemption to any type of noise, which can only be done through Ms. Brock. Over the summer months, we're also working on a brochure that outlines all of our county ordinances that possibly could affect any type of social event, making sure that we highlight those noise time frames. And we're going to personally hand deliver those to the fraternity houses within our county prior to the fall semester. We've had meetings already, and we're going to continue to meet with the inter-fraternity council members and risk managers for each fraternity within the county. We've had one meeting already with the Clemson University Dean of Students. I know one citizen has referenced that as Ms. Poole, and we've met with Dr. Poole, as well as the person that's responsible for fraternities with the university. So we're before school starts back, they're supposed to streamline a process for us to where if we have a situation or an incident, a noise complaint, underage drinking, whatever, then we'll be able to go there and photograph that, document that, and then streamline it through an email, what process the university wants us to send it to Clemson University. And that will be reviewed by the Code of Conduct Board that we're told at the university. They can be held accountable for violations of law, ordinances, improper conduct, even though they might occur off campus. Kind of give you an idea that the distinctions of accountability from a university standpoint. There's disciplinary probation. That's when a fraternity has incurred what they consider non-serious violations, and they're put on a watch list for future violations. They can be put on social probation, and that's where the fraternity chapter is no longer allowed to host social events on or off campus. And then there's actually a removal process where the chapter is no longer recognized as an approved Clemson University fraternity chapter. So that's kind of a briefing on where we're at in relation to the noise ordinance and how it affects citizens' complaints of loud noise from these fraternities having parties. Bottom line, we're going to be I'm not going to say aggressive, but we're certainly going to make sure that when we get complaints of noise, that these deputies are going to these, not only going and measuring the noise from a decibel meter at the complainant's location, but also following up whether they're rise to the level or not, to let those fraternities know we had a noise complaint. If we see, as an example, open source alcohol, Clemson University tells me that that's prohibited in their guidelines. So if there's an open tub of beer there, that's an open source alcohol. So we'll be photographing that, documenting that, sending that to the university. Underage drinking. I know one citizen had addressed you on concerns of vehicles parking in the road and blocking access. And they had actually called a record company, they said, and they were told they only towed commercially. But what I would advise citizens in that situation is to call another record company that there are other wrecker companies that tow for private citizens. And if a vehicle is on your property, you have every right to call a wrecker and have it towed off your property, and you're not responsible for the bill the owner of that vehicle is. One issue in that particular location was that was a private road, and on private property, law enforcement can't tow a vehicle off of private property. It has to be the homeowner. So, but we'll be glad to explain that and make sure that everyone understands that as well. The other ordinances, do you want to kind of stop there, Mr. Chairman? If there's any questions about that, or do you want to go on into the other discussions?
I don't have no problem you going on into the rest of the discussion. What I would like to say ahead of time, one, I'd like to get a copy, or the commissioner to get a copy of your action items that y'all have taken,
Sure.
so that we can keep them available for
Yes,
some
sir.
talking points. And I think we're headed in the right direction, and I appreciate that. And you can continue on, and we can work through this.
I'll forward, Jennifer, I'll forward you a copy of this as well that you can distribute. Continuing a little bit on the noise, something that I would ask you to think on and consider. We had a recent incident, and I think some of you might have been called, of a citizen that was shooting, target practicing on his own property, which is certainly within his right under the law. He was shooting, not only was he shooting high-powered rifles, he was shooting in a safe direction. There was no issue there. But he was shooting tannerite targets. And if you're not familiar with tannerite, you know, it's perfectly legal to buy this. Anyone can go in any store and buy tannerite targets. They're not considered an explosive because you actually have to mix most of it's an aluminum powder form, I think, that you have to mix it with.
Oxide.
Yeah, mix it with the oxidizers. But, you know, these tannerites, I guess the best way for me to describe it to you, it can sound like a thunder boom. It can rattle the windows in your home. And we had a situation recently where tannerite was being shot within 100 yards of some homes. Individual was upset about it. And so I don't know. Some states, from my understanding, has put some restrictions on tannerite. One suggestion that I had thought about was a possibility of considering a distance or yardage, maybe, you know, within 100 yards of a home or something. You know, I don't know, Mr. Root, you may want to weigh in on the legality of that, and y'all may not want to do nothing about it, and that's fine. But just know that we've had some complaints about tannerite, and if you've never heard it, like I say, it can rattle the windows in your home if you're close enough. You can put about 10 of these targets together, and you can actually blow something up with them.
It actually sounds like dynamite.
Yes, sir, it does. So just something that I wanted to make you aware of, to think about and consider. I think that's it as far as the noise ordinance, and noise ordinance permits.
Let me stop you right there while you're on the tannerite subject. I've read through this entire ordinance several times, and if you look under section 12-34, I got circled here under number 9. It talks about fireworks. And I would ask Mr. Root if he could possibly to look at maybe including tannerite mentioned into that number 9 item. We may can capture some sort of verbiage in there to control it somewhat.
Yes, sir. That's a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, would you want me to bring that language back to committee, or do you want us to have that tweak and send it to council?
Have it tweaked and just send it to council. And discussion there? Any other discussion on it?
The other ordinances that you all have considered, I've worked with Mr. Root, we've I've done some rewording, reached out to the solicitor. He doesn't see any issues, with it on his part, but on the blanket trespass authorization program, originally it had in that ordinance, that the county was responsible for purchasing the no trespassing signs. And based on my research, and I just think we need to put that on the business owner, to purchase those signs and install those signs, and we'll work with them to show them where they need to go. But he made that change in that ordinance. Seneca, I checked with Seneca, just, they've got it, and that's how they're doing it as well.
Okay.
But, that's one change that we made. Mr. Root, I think that's the only change we made in
That's the only change.
that ordinance, right?
Yes, sir.
The other prohibited, restricted conduct, public nuisance, we feel comfortable with those ordinances. I've talked with Mr. Root. Is there a possibility that this public nuisance ordinance could be utilized if we have multiple complaints over a period of time at a fraternity house? With these fraternities being a LLC, that's considered a commercial property. And so this addresses commercial, public nuisances. And so I think he and I both agree that under certain circumstances, that we possibly could apply that ordinance to multiple, complaints at a fraternity house as well.
We must be on the same wavelength, because I've got certain things circled here under public nuisances and frat wrote out beside it,
Yes, sir.
so.
Mr. Root, anything additional?
No, I believe you covered it.
That's all I have, unless you've got some.
So I'll make a motion to send those ordinances to the full council.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And just a reminder, committee, that the trespass isn't an ordinance, it's a program.
That's right.
Y'all don't have the authority over the sheriff's office like municipalities do, so y'all are taking that and running with it, but we'll bring the other ones back to council.
And the only other discussion I got, there's a couple of small edits that need to be made in here, and I'll get with you, Mr. Root. They're really non-consequential.
Great.
They're just small edits.
One thing I like to say, and I mentioned this to the sheriff, Clemson University Police Department has statewide jurisdiction. Since this is a Clemson University created problem, it'd be nice if they could help support in enforcing some of this stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Durham. I did do some research on that, and you're correct in that Clemson University officers have statewide jurisdiction, but only on university-owned property. These fraternities are not owned by the university, so therefore, they would not have authority. I'm just gonna follow up with you. I forgot to let you know that, so.
Let's see if there's anything else. That's all I had for that. I sure do appreciate the update.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff. Okay. Next on the agenda is discussion. Let's see, we've discussed the noise ordinance permits. Or did we? Trespass enforcement prohibited conduct. All right, moving down to, we've completed the first three bullets. Moving down to discuss modifications to ordinances governing Rescue Squad Advisory Commission and Fire Service Advisory Commission.
So, Mr. Miles, I brought these forward because I like for those advisory commissions to advise council. In the past they did, but they advised the full council, and then they went to more advise the staff some years ago. I looked at the old ordinance and kind of, where Mr. Root drafted it based on that, but to report to this committee, so it's a smaller committee. One thing I'd like to change in the way we drafted it originally, I went out back on having, appointed by council district. I think it'd be better to have the appointment go the current way that it does now, the election from within the fire districts or the rescue squad districts. Let them select who represents them the same way they do now. But I would like a provision in this ordinance that the advisory commissioners are allowed to be reconstituted upon the passage of this commission, of these ordinances, because feedback I've gotten, a lot of people chose not to participate because they felt like there was no leverage in participating. So I would like to open it up when we pass this ordinance, since it changes the structure of it, changes who they report to, so we can open it back up and they can elect, their members.
Mr. Rhodes, we need a motion for that.
Yes, if you could.
Y'all made that motion
I'll
as I
second.
previously described.
All in favor of the motion?
Now, I should have probably rolled all this in. I put pay in there, and I don't remember where I got the pay from another board or commission of $100 a year, and maybe that was in the previous one. Planning commission, other commissions, what are they, like $25 a meeting?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes,
planning
ma'am.
commission is $25 a meeting. Election commission is governed by state law, and we're required to pay them. I think this year it goes up to $2,500 for FY 25-26. Aeronautics commission gets $100 per year. There's one, BZA, I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the last one, not BZA. BZA does get paid. James, are you with me?
Library board gets a hundred
James
each.
left us. Library goes?
Yes, ma'am.
Board of Assessment Appeals. They're paid a base plus a per diem amount because they travel here.
What is the library paid?
$100 each year.
And they have actual statutory authority. I'm fine with just leaving the $100 a year, but I think we ought to revisit all of that at some point with inflation and gas and everything else, whenever these were put in place. It's obviously a lot more expensive. I was gonna say unless y'all think, go with a planning commission of $25 a meeting, or we can keep it $100 a year, or.
Have we Ms. Brock, have we benchmarked to other counties that might be comparable?
I have not, Mr. Chairman.
Do we-
I have not been asked to. I'm happy to do that and bring it back. Might be a good thing to do.
Could we
I'd
do
say
that?
the difference with planning commission and theirs is exponentially more. It's typically about $650 a year, so $600 a year at minimum normally, is that they are a statutorily required legislative body, a commission such as the aeronautics and others. If we wanted to include the pay, my recommendation would be that we start at the 100 as it's consistent with other boards, and if we're gonna make a change them all at
I
once.
agree with that, so we'll just leave
That's
that.
what, I agree with that.
And then one more thing I had in here, and I'm lessening it from what the original ordinance was years ago. I think they had like monthly meetings or something like that with all the fire districts. I think I reduced it to a quarterly, but I still don't know if that's realistic. Let's see if I can find it. So it's in here for each commissioner to visit each rescue squad within the council district or fire department, respectively for each one. Within the council district from which the respective commissioner was appointed at least once every 6 months, okay? I think originally it had about once every quarter. I reduced it to once every 6 months. That can be a lot to say they have to meet with every department. I just think they need to be in contact with the chiefs and stuff, so I don't know how to reword that line. I think a hard number of every 6 months is kind of steep to say they gotta meet at those departments.
Especially if it's physically that department.
Yeah. Just,
can be very
I mean, if we can just reword that some way, each commissioner's
Shall have communication with. each
maintain
department.
communication with their respective departments. Yeah, is there a smart way to word that? Ms. Root, can you figure that out?
Yeah, I will.
Look at Mr. Root for this.
I will come up with some language. I don't feel particularly smart right now, but maybe tomorrow.
Just something to say, and I'll make that motion, something to reword it to not be, you have to physically meet at each department twice a year.
Got it.
I mean, they might could get it all in by meeting whenever they have the chiefs meetings, something like that.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Second.
All in favor? Yeah, I agree with that.
Chairman, does that have to bring it back to committee?
Let's just send it on, and I'm gonna make a motion now to send it with the revisions we have, unless anybody has anything else.
I done.
Both of those ordinances to council.
Make sure I've got the revisions, essentially retaining the membership, the nature of election or appointment as it is with the current ordinance, but melding in the provisions that's in the ordinance under consideration right now, all the other provisions within it, correct?
Yes, but with the membership for it to be reconstituted upon the
after the
passage of this.
ordinances.
Yeah. So it'd be this ordinance, but with the old ordinance's membership requirements.
Provisions and reappointment.
That's correct.
And adding the pay at the $100 annual salary.
It's in there
Okay,
originally.
thank you.
So I made the motion.
Second.
All in favor? All right, and last bullet discussion is a discussion regarding volunteer fire physicals.
So I asked for this to be put on the agenda as well. So, and I spoke with Ms. Brock about it. Ms. Brock said that it was a workers' comp issue on affordability prices of workers' comp. And I'm kind of the mindset of, I agree with that. But at the same time, I spoke with people involved throughout the county, your normal contrarians, and then other people who don't complain a whole lot at all. And it's pretty universal. People feel like they will be able, if they have an issue, say a heart issue, and they see a routine cardiologist and doctor, that they should be able to take the physical packet to their doctor and have that approved. Not to have to do the annual visits and then go back to the county doctor, even though the county's paying for it. And I just thought there's something, even if it makes workman's comp cost more for that individual, it's still cheaper than losing volunteers and having to get paid staff. And I just feel like we need to make it as easy as possible we can to maintain and retain volunteers. Even if it costs a little bit more in workman's comp for that individual. Most of them, they got issues, that they see regular doctors for anyway. But just to keep that open environment and ease and not more burden on people who's already volunteering.
Are we gonna make it to where it is optional or special case?
I think the way it goes now, the way it's gonna go July 1st, if I read correctly, is they're gonna have to use the county doctor, or they're not gonna be covered on the workman's comp. Am I correct in that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't believe I don't think I knew that it was specified the county doctor. I thought it said required OSHA. So OSHA does require a certain physical for that, but if there is a regular position that would say this meets the OSHA physical standard,
I think if you just take a packet, if a kid plays high school sports, or at least used to, they take a physical form packet to their doctor, the doctor checks them out to that standard. If a doctor will sign them off, then I think,
I would not disagree if they're doing the stress test physical that's required for an air pack to go interior. And that's why the one you see at council tonight actually has two different physicals. So that a person that's had problems in the past can actually get a physical and drive a truck, be outside the fire, still volunteer, but can't put their air pack on because they didn't do the stress test physical. Most doctors' offices don't have a stress test physical. So the doctor signs off without a stress test physical, which does not meet the standard for the air pack to be an interior firefighter. And so with the new physical, that's why we changed those physicals to try to make sure we're inclusive as best possible for those people that aren't getting it. Because what we found is, there's a few companies that actually do a NFPA OSHA physical with the stress test. And people just don't have a treadmill without going to a doctor that does that for who we employ.
so I have to do a physical every year for SCBA, and I don't do a stress test. Is that a requirement if you had issues over a certain age?
But one of is a certain age, but a firefighter there is a recommendation for both OSHA for the air pack side, if you're just doing air pack, and then for the fire physical under the NFPA, which is what we set our standard on, says that you have to have a stress test physical to be an interior firefighter, not just exterior, for that.
Well, I appreciate having two standards for interior, exterior.
And that's how we were trying to address it. So they can choose now, where before everyone had to take the stress test and then be told, oh, by the way, you failed your stress test. You can't do this, but you're a lower level. We never sent them to a lower level. Said, hey, this person doesn't want a stress test. They're not interior, as an interior firefighter.
So what I would like to be able to do is, if a volunteer firefighter is interior certified, their doctor will sign them off with a stress test, whatever, because a lot of these guys, I talked to one the other day, he takes a stress test every year because he's had issues. Doctor will sign them off, let their doctor just be the one to sign them off. If they're not an interior firefighter, then yes, they need lower, and then for their own doctor to be willing to, if their own doctor willing to sign them off to that standard, let their own doctor sign them off. So where these guys don't have to go do the annual stress test with a doctor and then come to the county and do an annual stress test.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a form that we can get for OSHA NFPA so that we can have stand, like for high school physical, like when AWA
Right.
sports?
We have the forms that have to be filled, that each person gets that to go home to come, when they come to our physical.
Yeah.
That would be even better, because then it would be standardized for us receiving those things as well.
And sir, I will just, we have saved heart attacks, we've saved an aneurysm, we found cancer, we have found way more with people getting physicals that people didn't have insurance. And those kind of things by offering a physical, why it's very important. I mean, we're offering a huge benefit. I use it, my cardiologist loves that I give him my physical and he's like, I don't have to send you because I have to go through the same thing every year.
I don't think it's an issue of I think it's the biggest issue of the people with issues already, medical issues, who see a doctor regularly. They just don't want to have to see their doctor and then the county doctor. I think the other folks who may, if they didn't have physical, never have one, who's healthy, I think that's the ones you catch that will probably still just take advantage of the free county physical versus trying to get to their own doctor.
Okay, we can definitely provide a package.
Do we need an action of council for that?
It would be good, at least to direct Ms. Brock to work with Mr. Crine.
Okay. So,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, from the committee to start that process, yeah, you said council.
well, yeah, committee. So I'll make that motion as we discussed. I don't want to have to recap it, but to allow volunteer firefighters to use their own doctors, that they will sign the forms off, count towards their physical requirements.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will ask Ms. Brock. Ms. Brock, do you have any questions about your direction with that?
Yes, I'm perfectly clear on that, and I think as long as we have the form said that what we receive back is consistent, and that may have been an issue in the past, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of anyone, but one doctor may write language in a certain way, and another doctor may write language in another way. I think the consistency of a form would be great, and I think for the people who do have issues, that it is a little bit burdensome. They already have an X amount of training they have to do in order to be exterior or interior, and then on top of that, physicals to go along with it, so it makes sense.
They write in Latin.
Well, I can't read anything that I've ever received, even from my own doctor's office.
Well, I took a little Latin. You know what it translates? I got 20, see what you can get.
Any other discussion on this volunteer fire physicals? Matt, anything? That concludes the discussion items for this meeting. I hear a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.